That's okay. That's what we want. Okay, so.
Just like this, I think.
Yeah, it's not what we wanted. Can you go up to see if you can find Matt?
Yeah, it's good now. This is what they're meant to.
Yeah, we're about ready.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Grand Rounds. My name is Dana Williams. I'm a pediatric gastroenterologist, but also a passionate aerodigestive medicine physician, as well as patient experience. 2 years ago, my colleagues from the aerodigestive team and I were at the Aerodigestive Society meeting in Seattle, and our keynote speaker was Sanjay. And I remember the feeling after that talk, and that was a standing ovation event, that no exaggeration. And that's when we got together and say we would love to have Sanjay present for Grand Rounds, because this is the culture that we are growing and developing here at Phoenix Children's as well. And it's just so inspirational. So Dr. Sanjay Parikh is Chief of Division of Pediatric Otolaryngology, head and neck surgery at Seattle Children's Hospital. He currently serves as president of the American Society for Pediatric Otolaryngology and the Board of Regents in the American College of Surgeons. Dr. Parikh has over 150 publications with emphasis on advancing pediatric airway and sleep surgery care. His current NIH R01 multi-institutional study aims to discover unconscious bias in sharing decision-making between clinicians and caregivers taking care of children with sleep apnea. Dr. Parikh has given multiple leadership lectures to teams domestically, internationally, emphasizing quality improvement through humility, unity, and respect. He lives in Seattle with his wife and teenage children. Dr. Parikh, welcome to Phoenix Children's.
If you guys don't stand up, it'll be a sign of poor respect. So, so I'm Sanjay Parikh. It's nice to meet you all. This is my, I think my second or third time visiting Phoenix Children's, and it's changing. I can see just the architecture of the space. It's pretty remarkable. This children's hospital, I think, is regarded, nationally as sort of an emerging powerhouse. The growth that, for example, Dr. Gerber has seen within pediatric otolaryngology has been quite remarkable from the lens of looking from outside. And I think that this institution stands for quality. And I hear that over and over again when I go to different meetings. So I'm really honored to be here. As I get started, I'd like to acknowledge a couple of folks as I get started. First, I really foremost want to acknowledge Dr. Williams. We had a very nice conversation together in Seattle, and we just sort of had a nice connection. And for her sponsorship of me to be your presenter today is very, very empowering, and I'm very grateful and humbled by that sponsorship. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hartley, for your sort of sponsorship as well as in the CME space. And I appreciate you, and I also appreciate Ozzy Rodriguez, who's been a remarkable coordinator. And for those of you who really like getting emails reminding you to submit certain things for CME, she's really good at that. And I apologize, Ozzy, but I got it done. Okay, so I'm here. So thank you. And I also want to acknowledge my dear friend of 25 years, Dr. Mark Gerber. Dr. Gerber and I go back a long ways. We were sort of young up-and-comers, and I still think we are. We're still young up-and-comers, trying to carve out our field, trying to establish pediatric otolaryngology and neck surgery as a beacon for quality, for cooperation, for collaboration. Our field relies on the interaction with everyone in this room. We cannot succeed without that kind of collaboration. I think Mark has been exemplary at leading that nationally and internationally. He's currently serves as the president of the American Bronchoesophageal Association. I'm president of ASPO. In our society, we have these meetings that go next to each other. And this year, we'll be back here in a month. She and I are leading a new format. We came up with an idea. We need to teach our fellows and residents more about simulation around airway. It's going to be down the hall here. Right here, we'll be here in a month. We have it's pretty remarkable. We have 50 volunteering faculty and 100 attendees coming to do a simulation session. So anyway, I'm grateful. So thank you again. I'm very happy to be here. I also want to acknowledge your presence today, that you've come to learn, right? I want to honor that time that you've come here. You know, I'm going to be as humble and as open as I can about myself, about who I am, because I'm hoping that you get a couple of tidbits today that you get to take into your career, into your practice. And I'm going to share my own journey in a way that maybe you will like it or you won't like it, but I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about leadership in my career, and most of it, I say, has been intentional. I grew up at a time when I trained in, think about this, I trained in 20th century medicine. Okay, I finished my residency in 1999. There was a different era of surgical training that I was exposed to, and now I'm the chief of division. Do I practice leadership the same way I was trained? Do I carry that same ideology that I was trained with, or do I need to change to rethink about what leadership looks like in 21st century medicine? I have one disclosure. I have partial funding through this R1 that Dr. Williams mentioned. The other thing I'll disclose is that I've gone through coaching. I've had 4 rounds of coaching in my career, and I'm currently just starting my 4th round of coaching currently. And through that coaching, I think I've unveiled some of my own biases and my own difficulty I have with connecting with people, and that's helped me get better as well. I really do recognize how valuable coaching is, and many of the things I'm going to share with you I've learned through these coaching experiences. For those of you who have not been to Seattle Children's Hospital, it seems like everywhere has a brand new wing. I think every children's hospital country you go to, oh look, we have a brand new wing. It's so great, you know, and we do. We have great wings. So we have a 400 bed hospital, and we're also lucky. We have 4 satellites that we take care of, and we also have a 1 million square foot of research space downtown in these large glass buildings. There's about 4 glass high rises next to each other where we have our basic science. We're one of the highest funded NIH centers in the country for research, and we're really proud of that culture. And that culture is what allows me to recruit and retain talent that we bring in. I'm lucky we have a group of 12. These are the 10 faculty. I have 1 hospitalist as well, but we just hired 2, Dr. Zenner and Dr. Zoe, in the last year. This group I'm very lucky to be part of. I came to Seattle. My journey started in Canada, actually. I was just telling Dr. Williams, like her, I'm an immigrant to the United States. I grew up in Montreal till I was 10. And my parents are Indian immigrants. Then I spent 15 years in Vancouver, where I went to university and medical school. And then I did my residency in Toronto, and that was where I was really excited about working with children, because there's a very, very impressive, Sick Kids is an impressive children's hospital there. I then did 2 years fellowship training in Boston. And then after that, I was single at the time, looking at where I wanted to work, and I chose the Bronx. So my first job for the first 10 years of my career were in the Children's Hospital of Montefiore Einstein, where I really, I think I was drawn to the multiculturalism there, and also the kind of ideology that I wanted to work in an underserved area, and I learned a lot clinically in that space. The next 15 years of my life were after being recruited. I moved to Seattle with my wife. Our 2 kids are growing up there. I have a 17-year-old and a 14-year-old. The 17-year-old is interested in collectibles. He's built a business around about football card trading. Believe it or not, he's working on that. And my 14-year-old likes dance, and she's really sassy. And so, or we say spicy, but she's a driven leader. I can sense it. We do 37,000 visits, 4,500 surgical procedures, and we have, like you, we have destination centers of excellence. Our team consists of 12 physicians. We have 10 APPs. We have 12 nurses. We have 6 MAs, 6 administrators, 6 surgical coordinators, and 25 audiologists and 5 audiology assistants. A team of 80 is a division of pediatric otolaryngology and surgery. My role in that is to try and get the best out of the people around me, to make sure that they feel united in our vision and that we agree to certain governance and data, and we hold ourselves accountable to that. Here's my fellowship graduation photo. This is taken in June of 2001. I moved to New York City about 2 months later, and 9/11 was there in my first month of practice. This reflects kind of what 20th century education was like. You look at the demographics of the group. This is in the backyard of one of my attendings, and there's the younger faculty. One of the women in the middle is from Ireland, and the two to the left were younger faculty at the time. We were seeing this transition from a predominantly male sort of field, working more into female. My next photo is a photo I took a couple of years ago, or team of our several of our fellows who happen to be standing together. You can see the changing face of our field. And you can also see Claire Richardson on the third from the right. She's one of our faculty, one of our proudest graduates from our fellowship, who's currently here at Phoenix Children's and is a remarkable airway surgeon who is helping lead our event that we're hosting next month. So I want to acknowledge Dr. Richardson. But I have to think, let's all think about where have we all come? Who trained you? How are you training the people around you? Are you carrying on the qualities that you respect and the people that trained you? Do you recognize the shortfalls of the people that trained you and potentially opportunities you have? I'm going to ask you to self-reflect on what makes a good leader. I want you to think of the best leaders and the worst leaders you've had. And I want you to think of the qualities that they've had that you shared. And I want you to think about what are the negative and positive attributes of a good leader in your mind. I'm thinking about a couple of people that I don't respect. People that have made me feel small, people that have used their voice in a loud way with me, people that made me go home and think about them at night before I go to bed. Those are people I don't like. And so what are those negative attributes? What have they done? For many of them, I think it's this sort of sense, and maybe these are some of the terms that you came up with, this idea of autocratic, dishonest, dogmatic, indecisive, self-serving, arrogant, mean, disrespectful. These are things I don't think that work well in today's generation of leaders. Some of this, and Mark can attribute to this, is what we learned from. The top person, some of my academic institutions were the loudest, they were the tallest, they were most outspoken. We called them visionaries. Oh yeah, look at Dr. Blank. They're a visionary. They believe in something and they're going to hold ourselves all accountable to this one vision that they really believe in. And that was leadership, right? I don't know if that's really the leadership that I want to be part of now. I'm not sure that if I lead with autonomy and with decisiveness without understanding my team, that I'll make anything happen. But what are the positive attributes when you think of the leaders that you work around that you really believe in? What are some of the characteristics that you really believe in? Well, perhaps they're empathetic, effective, they're strategic, they're innovative, they're honest, they're approachable, and they're respectful. For the next 30 minutes, I want you all to think about your role and how you lead. Each one of you is a leader. You're part of a healthcare team. You work with your teammates, you work with your administrators, you work with your surgery center, you work with your inpatient floor, you work in your CVICU, you work in all these spaces, and you have to lead the care in your team. I'm going to share with you my own journey about what I call intentional teamwork. This was not work that comes instinctually to me, but intentionally. So instinctually would be to be, okay, this is what I saw. This is what my mentors did. This is now instinctual to me, how I should be leading. Intentional leadership is where you think about leadership in a different frame and you're actually learning to be a better leader. These type of skills are not automatic for me. I had to learn these skills to become better in my role as a leader. And I think this is what I want to convey to you, the 3 phases, the 3 chapters for me in this sequence that I think I've been better. So I'm going to speak to you about inquiry and how this sort of intentional idea of leadership can grow. So we're going to talk about 3 phases today, and I have till about 8:15, right? Is that right? About 8:15, 8:20, 8:30. Okay, so I'll wrap up around 8:20, so we have some time for. Is that okay? So we have some time for dialogue. What is inquiry, and why is inquiry important? There used to be a time in my life where I used to think that I had to have all the ideas, that I had to be the one that was the driver of ideas, but my mindset's changed. There's a book written by Edgar Schein and Peter Schein called Humble Inquiry. This is if you do an MBA, this would be a typical book that people would say, you have to read this book. I don't think you have to read the book, but I think you can learn some of the concepts of what is it, and how humble inquiry affected me in sort of thinking about that paradigm of 20th versus 21st century leadership. I think I grew up with sort of this idea of when I was the leader, I was the consultant. I held the expertise to the ideas, and I wanted to problem solve with my team because I'm the expert. I'm the piezolaryngeologist in the room. I've got the best ideas for airway. You got to believe it. You know, I trained in Toronto. I trained in Boston. I got to be the best airway surgeon there is out there. I've got all the ideas right here, and I'm going to come and meet with you, and I'm going to share with you, because you've consulted me. I'm going to share with you how we're going to solve this slide tracheoplasty problem. I'm going to tell you the surgery. I'm going to tell you how long it takes. I'm going to tell you about the case series. I have all that knowledge. But then maybe 21st century leadership's different. It's more this concept of coaching. We keep hearing this idea, the high-level teams that are well-coached succeed. You know, you hear about the Seahawks, my team, winning the Super Bowl, that the coach is only 2 years in, and he believes this idea about stacking. He talks about stacking over and over again. We're going to stack our wins. We're going to learn from our losses. We're going to keep stacking ourselves based on our experiences. And they won the Super Bowl. And you have to have this idea that maybe I don't hold the expertise. Maybe when I'm in the CVICU and I'm the airway surgeon, maybe it's better I listen about the issues with the cardiogenic shock that I just created, and someone may need ECMO because they're having some severe, leakage of fluid in their lungs. Maybe I need to listen and come up with some ideas as a team. But how do we create that framework as well is another part of that. How do I show up and have people be comfortable enough to share those ideas? I want to point to questions and what goes around humble inquiry, and there's an intentionality to this. And in a minute, I'm going to ask you to talk to the person next to you, so be prepared for that. I know it's hard, but you're going to talk to someone next to you. There's 3 levels of questionings that I really believe in, and when you're asking these humble inquiry questions, this guy, Arthur Costa, was a professor in Sacramento. He developed the 3 levels of questioning in humble inquiry. The first one is just gathering, the second one is processing, and the third one is where the magic happens, where there's creating. And I'm going to share some examples of actual clinical examples that I've been part of that I'd like you to think about. Here's the house of sort of Costa's 3 levels of questionings. And the idea is that depending on the questions you ask your team, you create different ideas for the team to succeed. So at the bottom, you have the sort of the basic ones, gathering ideas, coming to forward with counting, matching, naming things. The second floor is processing, comparing, contrasting. But the third floor is the magic. It's creating, generalize, imagine, judge, predict. And so when I always think when I meet with teams, I'm always thinking about how do I ask level 3 questions when I intentionally meet with people to build a framework around ideas. So for example, you want to promote discovery. You want to deepen the coach's awareness. You want to be open-ended, direct, and you want to focus on what will happen next. And you don't want to make it feel like an interrogation. So I'm going to give you one example that is currently in our field. So imagine you are the surgical chief resident on one of your rotations. The 3rd-year resident on the team approaches you in a private space and shares that they are disappointed with the amount of operative time they are experiencing. They feel like you are assigning yourself to cases that are junior level and displacing their experience. I'm going to give you a minute here to talk to someone next to you, and I want you to think of what would be the next question you would ask that person. So take a minute here and ask, grab a friend, and then I'm going to ask Dr. Hartley here.
How would you envision
Okay, let's get back on track here. Dr. Hartley gave me two questions. Is it okay if I divulge what they were? The first question he asked, I'm the junior. He asked me, "What do you want?" And I think that's that's a great question. What do I want? And I said I want more surgery. And then the second question he asked was, how do you envision we come up with a solution for this? And that's true humble inquiry, right? And then I suggested in feedback to him, maybe even a stronger thing would be like, how do we craft together a solution that works for both of us, right? So it's this idea of asking questions that come up stronger, that you're asking the questions that are not to be in the authoritarian position, but this humbleness about it that brings people in to the team and wants to share their ideas. Which one will be more likely to be responded to? Anybody else have a question they want to, like what question they made in their little group? Anyone want to share one? Please go ahead.
Start off by saying thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
First of all, saying that we want to put together and work best, but you're mindful of the ideal number of hours spent.
Great.
Like, what's the right amount of work or whatever that.
That's great. Just sort of saying, first of all, I like the way you guys started that by saying, acknowledging, think about the courage this took this person, right? Maybe your initial response is like jackass, right? Like, why are you like, get back to work, like that's what I would have gotten, right? Like, come on, man, this is ridiculous. Just get back to work. You're a surgeon. You'll get your turn. But now you're thinking in a different way. Think about the courage it would take this person to come forward and say, they probably thought about this for a month, right? To finally have the moment to come and talk to you. And how are you gonna honor that? So maybe your first level question you would ask is like, which cases did you feel excluded from? This would be kind of a very base, the first level, instinctually, I want to get the data. I got to get the data and understand this better, right? So you go, wow, what cases do you feel excluded from? And then you maybe you want to understand the process better. How are we currently assigning cases? But then when you think about level 3, it's going to be how do we, not you, how do we solve this issue, honoring our mutual goal for education? Again, sort of thinking about these 3 questions in a different way when you're working with your teams. I'm going to give you another example for you to huddle with your team here. So now you are the clinical director of your needle intensive care unit. A speech pathologist approaches you. Do you think I can start passing flexible laryngoscopes on my own for swallowing evaluations in the NICU? This is not the current state. You're the director of the NICU, and someone's coming to you to ask to expand their scope of work in your ICU. Okay, what's the next question you ask? Okay, go back to your teams.
This is probably not the level 3 response, so I'm trying to tell you, where you're at.
Conditions are good too. You guys are very humble. Okay, we're back at it. We're back at it. And I realized something in the last minute here is that Dr. Hartley's very humble. Yeah, he asks good questions. But let me see if anyone else has an example of questions that you'd want to ask. Anybody willing to volunteer? I know it's a difficult place to volunteer. They feel safe. Oh, yes, thank you, Dr. Crockett.
Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to change this?
Yeah, yeah. And what do you think the responsibility to that?
Oh, for us, that probably our accessibility. But I mean, it may be that they say, you know, we are not able to express our full self.
Yeah. Great. Now, how do you push? I'm going to push you a little bit here. How do you take that even higher so you get to the magical creativity? What's the next question you'll ask? You know, the answer is probably what you got. Yes, we want to expand our scope of practice.
How do we come together by honoring our mutual goal of successful NICU swallowing time?
All right, now we're talking. There's a creativity, right? You're coming back in a moment of humility where you're saying, I don't own this answer, but I own this value for these families and these patients, and I want to work with us to come up with a solution. You don't know as an otolaryngologist what the current national standards are for this. You don't know what the medical staff services are going to say about expanding scope of practice, but maybe we can explore that together. So, you know, I think a level question would be, level one would be, how many swallowing evaluations do we do a year? You know, you may want to know this information because you're thinking, oh, is it really worth it? You know, that may be an instinctual thing. A level two question is like, what kind of credentials would you need, right? Like, let's explore that. But I think, Dr. Kari, that last thing, like, how do we build a competency pathway together? You know, that would be the next level three question in teamwork. Like, how do we work together to solve this solution, solve this problem, knowing that we respect each other? And this is actually a real case scenario where I was the otolaryngologist in our University of Washington NICU, our speech pathologist. We have a trouble there. We're only there about once every 2 weeks. The speech pathologists were frustrated because we weren't able to be there for them when they see patients, you know, day by day. And so we actually work with them to create a competency pathway, and we proctored them for about 30 fiber optic evaluations. We identified patients that were inclusion candidates, exclusion candidates, and then they became independent. And here's a picture of the speech pathologist I work with building that, who's actually doing the scope on a NICU patient, on a NICU baby. And the number of consults we've received has gone down by about 90% from that team because they're able to do their own independent work. But it started with me having those humble inquiry questions. How do we come up with a competency pathway that would make sense? I mean, there's more to it than that, but I mean, it starts with these kind of questions that you don't just automatically assume that you have the expertise, but the team does. I also want to speak within this idea of humble inquiry. You know, I mentioned the word safe a few minutes ago. And I want to talk a little bit about safety means within the humble inquiry, because in some environments, I even don't feel safe to speak, and some I do. I still go to some meetings where I feel like, I've got an idea. I'm not going to share it right now. I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait my moment. I'm going to wait. And there's other meetings I go to where I feel like, oh my God, I just spoke the whole time. Like, why was, you know, somebody led this meeting and I was very, you know, I gave it all. And there's Amy Edmondson's a PhD and a professor at Harvard Business School, and she's really been credited with this idea of the author of teaming. And she came up with this idea of psychological safety. How many of you have heard of this term before, psychological safety? It's a term that's really evolving. And I have a funny story to share about this. I went to, I spoke to one of my mentors who's a past president of our association, and he called me. He was asking me, he was giving me some advice about something. And I said, he asked me, what are you doing with ASPO? I said, well, I'm trying to create more space so people feel safe to speak, you know, ask questions at podiums, feel safe to come up with ideas. And he goes, why are you doing that? If people don't feel safe, they should just wear a helmet at the meeting. So I think there's still some work to do on like what this means. But what she really identified was that she found that more vocal team groups had better performance outcomes than those less vocal, even when the opinions were contrary. So the success of the team was better when people were willing to speak even bad ideas, because all ideas that were fleshed out resulted in an acceleration on uniting around an idea. It's a belief that the context is safe for interpersonal risk-taking, that speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes will be welcomed and values. I'm going to give you a case now for you to think about psychological safety. Okay, you are the hospital vice president in charge of ambulatory clinic volumes, having a critical budget meeting with your team. Does this sound familiar? Does anybody know about these meetings, right? You know, so the administrators get together, they're worried about not meeting budget. They're going to have everyone in the room. We call them jam sessions. Actually, it's kind of funny. Actually, we call them a jam. I was just at my jam session last week. And in this room, I mean, imagine this. I'm in a boardroom. The vice president for ambulatory is at the head of the boardroom. I'm at the last person on this U. And there's about 6 or 7 different hospital administrators in the room, a couple of physicians. Our chief physician executives in the room. And so this is the common scenario. But you're the vice president in that seat, and you notice that you just hired this new senior director who's a star from another hospital, and you brought them in, and they're not saying anything. The meeting's gone for 1 hour, and you're still looking, and this person's brilliant, and you know they've got ideas, but they're quiet. I want you to just take 2 minutes, talk to your team, and think about why is that person quiet. Okay, go ahead. Back to your group.
They don't have anything to say. They're the vice president's on the right. State president fires.
Yeah. Okay, we're back at it. So let's talk about this meeting environment a little bit, because I'm going to guess some of you guys came up with some of the challenges here. And then what are your next steps, right? Ozzy was just giving this idea too, like, you know, maybe we just continue the meeting as is. Do we want to really pick on someone who maybe is not feeling safe at that moment, right? Or maybe it's better. Maybe we intentionally call on that person in the meeting and ask for their opinion in this meeting. Maybe this person has the best idea in the room for how we're going to improve clinic volumes tomorrow, but they're not sharing it. So maybe we do want to intentionally do it. But then there's this third idea that I want to share with you. And then I put 2, but maybe meet with this new member before the next meeting. I'm going to share this story with you about what I experienced just in this last year after we talked. I just became a member of the Board of Regents of the American College of Surgeons. It's the largest surgical society, 80,000 members. And there's 22 board members, each from a different specialty. And it's a little intimidating. The room is full of, you can imagine, older surgeons. I'm the youngest in the room. It's hard to believe that too. I'm the youngest in the room. And they're all respected field members, top of their game, chairs of different programs around the country get together. 2 weeks before the meeting, I get a random text from the chair of the Board of Regents. He says, I want to meet with you. I'm like, what did I do wrong? Like, I haven't even been to a board meeting yet, you know? And then he met with me for 30 minutes and he said, Sanjay, I just want you to know, these are what I'm thinking is going to be our major agenda items for that meeting. I'm hoping you come prepared and I'm going to welcome your opinion throughout the meeting. I'm going to be looking for your leadership to make the meeting better. I mean, I got tingles like from that conversation. So I realize now when I'm in meetings and I'm going to them, I have to really think not just about the people I know, but the people that are not speaking. And it's my job as a leader to create the environment where everyone feels safe to speak. Because I've been in that scenario where I'm in a room and I don't want to speak. And I want to make the team that I'm around feel comfortable saying what they want to say. There's another example I want to share with you about safety at Seattle Children's Hospital. And I'm not sure if you guys, I'm sure you guys have a timeout in the operating room, right? You know, everyone does it nationally. It's been shown to reduce infection rates, shown to improve quality, safety, mortality, all these things that come out there. But one of the things we've taken out of this is that we really focus on this idea of trust in the operating room. And so I don't know if you guys do this, but the second line, if you can sort of read that, it says introductions. So the top left is our timeout. The second line is introductions. And we go into clockwise row. It's designated. We do this every morning. The RN lead starts with her name, and then we go clockwise in the room, and we all call out our name, and I say Sanjay Parikh, otolaryngology. And why do we do that? Well, we have 15 ORs, we have 200 team members. I can guarantee you, I probably work with most people about twice a year in our operating room. I wish I had the same every time, but just recognizing everybody's name, that's that proactive work that the chair of Board of Regents is doing. That's that proactive work to give everyone a name in that decision, in that high stress, high quality environment. Now people have the feeling, oh, hey, I used my name. People know my name. There's many times, guys, I hate to say this, but I'm operating, I won't know the name of the person's assistant. That's not great, right? Is that great for that family and safety? And so that's where we have to keep working to make sure that we have some honor in that name process. The smaller the system, the better. I think in these bigger institutions, we have trouble with that kind of problem. Okay, we talked about inquiry. I want to move into talking about numbers and change. And I want to talk about SMART goals. Who's heard about SMART goals here? Great. So SMART goals were outlined by George Doran, the former director of Washington Power Company. And he had developed this process of refining goals so they're no longer amorphous, becoming achievable. And this is from Google. I don't even know. I'm sorry. I apologize if you're the ones who created it, but I just took it as a snapshot. And it's these 5 ideas. It's an acronym for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. When we have data and it's measurable, that's beautiful. Like I tell this to all my team. If we have 2 great ideas, 2 wonderful ideas to work on, one, we get the data right now, one, we don't have the data, I'm always going to pick the idea that has the data. We need to have data in our measurements in order to show success. Because otherwise, when we want to scale something and generalize it, if we don't have evidence to show that we're actually getting better, it's not going to work. In healthcare, data analytics can be difficult. And this is a power thing I've noticed. It's that sometimes data is not shared with frontline workers. It's held in a different suite in a different part of the hospital and given to us. I like data to be as democratic as possible so that everyone in a room has access to that data so that they can understand it, tweak it, deliver it, believe in it. You know, there's this thing that we all face. And I have to say, I go to meetings and someone spent a month carving out a graph about this sort of thing. And it has otolaryngology on the slide. You know, we're under budget and, you know, we're not doing great. And my instinct right away is, first thing I always think is, oh, the data's wrong. Yeah. Hang on. Did you count in that variable that we had 2 physicians away on that? Was that variable accounted for? Did you control for the fact that we had a seasonal problem with, you know, did you control for those variables? Oh, you didn't. Well, you know. And that's the human instinct to data. We just don't trust it. But I think we have to learn that measurement is critical to success. At our Seattle Children's Hospital, I'm going to give you 2 examples of some work I've done with our ambulatory surgery center. I apologize, this is the only busy slide in the whole thing. But up here is there's our 3 phases of improvement we did looking at opioid reduction, where we had 1% of cases had opioid that we dropped down here to about 5 or 6%. And I'm not talking about just post-op, I'm talking about altogether, including during case. And this data is available on a dashboard that we have through something called Adaptix. It's this high-speed software package developed by one of our anesthesiologists, actually, or not. So I have this software on my laptop and my computer, and I can just go and I can plug in some things and I get all this data rapidly. And I feel that's a great example of how data and measurement can work together. And for me, it's been critical because this quality improvement cycle always gets better when I have data. Here's one more example of greenhouse gases that we produced at our ambulatory surgery center. And this is kilograms per minute. By the way, it's pretty remarkable how much greenhouse gases anesthesia involves with when we use nitrous and some special inhalation agents. Happy to talk to you guys later about that. We've cut out nitrous pretty much out of all our work because of the greenhouse gas effect on that. Operating rooms in the United States are responsible for a massive carbon footprint problem. So we can talk about that. But look at how we reduce that over 4 cycles. Over a phase of about 2 years, we've reduced our greenhouse gases. Again, the data drives this improvement. We've shared this on a wall somewhere. People get more engaged and we scale it. I'm going to give you another exercise to think about. A second-year medical student on her 1-month elective rotation is interested in gastroenterology research. She likes the database you've built for 100 eosinophilic esophagitis patients. And she asks you, hey, can I study the outcomes of your patients? You already have a broad IRB. Should you say yes? So this med student is going to be with you for 1 month. You've got 100 patients with about 200 fields that you've collected of information, and they want to study the outcomes. Are you going to say yes? I've said yes. And that person doesn't get the project done. We're keeping in touch for another year. And I'm handcuffed because I don't know whether I should do the research without that person. And now I realize I'm not going to do that again. So I say, you know what? Let's sit down and let's do the SMART goal. And so I literally do this with every research project I do with a mentee. We pull this up on my computer screen. I said, let's go through this together to figure out, is this research going to be effective or not? So is it specific? It's not a specific question. Studying outcomes of eosinophilic esophagitis, that's not a specific question. Is it measurable? Well, we haven't got any question that's measurable. Is it achievable? Yeah, probably. I've got the 100 patients. Is it relevant? Yeah, it's really relevant because I'm really interested in esophageal eosinophilic esophagitis. Is it time bound? You better believe it. I've got the student for 1 month. I'm luckily already have an IRB. If I don't have an IRB even, how can I even take on a student at this point? And so maybe you sit down and you meet and you sort of go through these 5 questions together and you come up with a different question. And then the question now is, does 3 months of dual therapy of particular famotidine improve eosinophil counts on esophageal biopsy? Now we're thinking in a different way, right? We've really sliced the research question as thin as we possibly can to honor that SMART goal exercise. This is a very specific question. It's absolutely measurable. We have pre and post biopsy results on our patients that we've been surveilling. And we can look in the AMR if they've had the 2 therapies. So we can get this data fairly effectively. Probably within a week, we can get this data and then we can start writing the manuscript together. So this SMART goal has been really critical for me in sort of data and understanding numbers. So we talked about numbers. The last thing I'll talk to you about is change. And this will be the last part of the conversation today. Change is difficult. Humans are not designed to change. Let me give you this example. Imagine you're a cave person, okay? And you've lived for 10 years with your wife or your partner in a cave. You've got 2 kids, a dog, and you found out how to make things meet. And then I show up and I say, hey, good news. If we walk together 10 miles, there's a cave with a swimming pool, corn, a microwave oven, and you're going to be safe for another 10 years. Are you going to come with me? Right? You've just had 10 great years with safety with that family. Are you going to come with me? Humans change is really difficult. And there's a guy who really studied this because generally we don't trust leaders. We don't trust data. And we resent the people that initiate change. That's just the human experience. Speaking back to that data example, right? I don't trust that data. It's wrong. There's a guy named Daniel Kahneman. He recently passed away. And he was a PhD at Princeton, and he won the Nobel Prize for Economics. And he studied decision-making under uncertainty and found this idea of prospect theory. I'll share you a little bit about that. And he popularized the concept of loss aversion, and that people prefer small guaranteed outcomes over larger risky outcomes. And this is what I often think about when we're coming up with ideas together, and we have to work together to come up with solutions. Small, measurable ideas will always launch faster than larger, non-measurable ideas. If there's one thing I can help you remember out of this talk, this is my key thing I've learned. Small, measurable ideas will always succeed faster than large, ambitious ideas, okay? I was very lucky, and early on when I moved to Seattle, Seattle Children's was very involved with Toyota production system into integrating into healthcare. It was a forefront of thinking about how lean methodology could improve outcomes. So with the team, I actually visited Japan. Toyota actually came out of, was actually Toyota, a looming company that changed to Toyota. And this is a replica of the first car that was made of wood by that company. A group of Japanese businessmen went to Detroit, learned auto factory making, and moved back to Japan. And here I am standing with a group learning about looming in the Toyota Museum. And after that, I learned about the Toyota prediction symptom principles, which I really deeply believe in and are part of my daily work. Create reliable, reproducible products, have rapid flexibility in products, engage frontline teams to experiment with Kaizen. Kaizen is this Japanese term for small improvements, and to eliminate waste and remove errors. And I'm fearless in stopping the line, a Toyota concept. If we are not doing right, let's stop what we're doing, rethink it, and reapply it. Taiichi Ono is really the father of the Toyota production system, and he integrated the concept of Kaizen. He was a staunch believer that without measurement, there cannot be success. And that is the key tenet of what he believes in. During this time I met the founder of the Lexus brand, and I learned from that sensei a lot more about the idea of humans and change. And that the idea is to create space for small ideas. We are not constructed to change. We just can't. It's really hard. You know, in our society, in pediatric we have level 1 evidence for certain ideas about the use of antibiotics after tonsillectomy. Level 1 evidence. Do not use antibiotics in this country after tonsillectomy. We're only at about 85%. 15% of tonsillectomies in this country still use antibiotics after surgery. Why is that? Well, I've been doing it for 20 years. It makes sure my kids don't have bad breath. I have 0 bleeds after tonsillectomy. I swear, I have 0. Never seen one. You know, you probably don't have a phone. You know, like this is the kind of stuff we have out there. We just can't change. But smaller ideas can be embraced a little bit quicker. Maybe an example of a small idea would be, you know, I mean, just think of one in my practice right now. I'll give you one. We're currently struggling with something called critical clinic. We have this problem where we have access. Our wait logs are 4 to 6 months. And so we came up with this idea. We have a regular cadence of urgent things that we need to see: nasal fractures, stridor babies. And so we decided we create a different clinic model. So we developed something called critical clinic. Each of us takes one critical clinic a week. There's 10 of us that cover that. So every 10th week I'm covering critical clinic. And it has to be just the nurses get to put patients in this clinic. But I've got a problem. Some of the physicians are putting their own patients in critical clinic. Surprise, right? They're seeing that space not as a system space, but their space. And so I've got a problem I'm trying to solve. So I'm having a faculty meeting next week to talk about this. I'm going to ask the group, what one small change can we do so we honor our family's goals of getting in for rapid involvement? And that's how I'm going to approach that. So that's an example of where I think that we create space for small changes. I don't even know what the solution is, you know, because I respect the fact that people are struggling. They need space for their patients. But I want to make sure we have access because it really helps our throughput, and not our throughput, but helps our families get critical care. All right. And then whatever that idea is going to be presented, we're going to pilot it. That's the other thing I got to stress. I love piloting. It's so non-threatening. It's so non-threatening. You know what? That's a great idea. Let's make a policy that only physicians are allowed to put 2 of the 12 patients on that day can be their own. Let's pilot that for 3 months. And I'm going to come back to you with how that goes. And so I think those small changes are better than me saying an email, hey, guess what, guys? We've had a problem with some of you are using your critical clinic spots. I've made a policy change so that only 2 patients are being allowed to be seen by you. Like, how does that feel when I send that email out, right? So that's the idea of human and change. I'll give you another example. At your annual aerodynamics retreat, you're running a subgroup on TEF. This is a true story. The GI and surgical team stated they would like to move a subset of patients out of their digestive clinic into their own TEF clinic. This may fracture your team. We had an annual retreat and our team came together and this came up. You're in charge of the airdigest center and I'm running the meeting. How do you react? A group wants to withdraw from the air digestive clinic that you work so hard to create. They want to have their own thing. Well, you may feel that we already do a great job with these patients. The TEF patients are seen in air digestive clinic. We're already the same team. What's wrong with our current models? Like, why do we need to change? And won't you disrupt our existing clinic? But then maybe you think in a different way. Maybe TEF clinic could be complementary clinic. You know, maybe and then maybe that would help my colleagues. Maybe my colleagues will feel better if they have fulfilled in their practice because they feel they have their own unit. And maybe compartmentalizing that into a smaller group will get better research, better quality improvement, because there's a smaller team working on a very specific set. So the initial reaction may seem very visceral, maybe the outcome's different. And actually that's what we did. We landed on a pilot where we said, you know what, we're gonna do 3 months. We normally have air digestive clinic every week. We're gonna send one of those, we're gonna change to TEF clinic for 3 months. We're gonna pilot that. We're gonna try that smaller change and we'll see if it works. Well, guess what? We changed and we never went back. So now we have a TEF clinic once a month that's similar players, but it's run a different way. We have a general surgeon in that clinic that we didn't have in the other air digestive clinic because that general surgeon, for them, it's very rewarding to be in that TEF clinic. And so that happened because of that change. Okay, we talked about the 3 phases of team work. We talked about inquiry, numbers, change. I want to share a few final thoughts with you. Build your teams around unity. That's the other concept I really believe in. And nest your goals within strategic plans. Your CEO, I guarantee, is working on a strategic plan or has one that they've implemented that they feel really is critical to the mission of this hospital. I'm going to guess it involves growth. I guess it involves quality. It's going to involve innovation. There's going to be 5 or 6 strategic tactics that are going to be defined within that strategic plan. What's going to happen to your division or your goals if you nest your goals within those tactics? Or if you go tangentially into a different direction? Which one's going to get more likely to get funded, sourced, and realized? So I always think about that when we as a group come up with an idea. Hey, Sanjay, why don't we start, this other goal of having, a clinic over in, Wenatchee, when the strategic plan is, we need to be moving into Everett, right? Well, I've got to think differently, right? I've got to make sure that we're matching the hospital goals when we do that. When we're going to go contrary or tangential, I think you're going to get less success. And then initiate small ideas that are time-bound, integrate visible data for accountability and success. This last piece about visible data is really important to me. This is a picture I took of a Japanese worker in a fabric company, and this on the right was what we brought home. This is our PACU charge leading a huddle in the morning, going over the daily operations and our goals and our quality and safety concerns that we still run today, that same process. Here's my board outside my office. I have the Division of Otolaryngology Surgery Daily Engagement Board, where I have my metrics on the left. I have the strategic goals of the hospital on the top. And then it changed. This was my first board. This is my second board that started about 6 months ago. And guess what? Last week, I erased the board. So my service line director and I felt it was too busy. We erased the board. It's right now empty. And we're working on a next generation of that board to promote ideas within our team to work together. This is a picture last year in Indianapolis, picture of our fellows of Seattle Children's Pediatric Otolaryngology. I'm really proud to be part of this team. This is a unique group, and I'm very lucky and privileged that they think of me as a leader in some sort of role there. And I honor that everywhere I go, that I have to show up and be present and listen with humility, understand data, and implement change. Next month, I'll be back here for the ASPO. I'm very fortunate to serve as president. We've made some substantial changes to that group. We made our APP membership criteria much easier. We made our international membership criteria much easier. We've started a new resident category for membership, which I'm really proud of. All with the idea of being more inclusive and humble in our approach. I also want to thank you all. I flew in last night. I landed at midnight and I stayed at the Royal Palms, fantastic hotel. I'd like to visit it during the daytime. And then I came here this morning at 6. And I'm very grateful to you for offering to cover my expenses and for providing me a stipend. ASPO has founded a new women's leadership panel I'll be donating all of that to that panel. So in perpetuity, we'll have an endowed lectureship for women for leadership in ASPO. So thank you. I'm going to forward all that to that. It's just my privilege to be here today. Okay, so my last thought is a quote that I want you to think about. There goes my people. I must follow them, for I am their leader. And this was a quote from a man who led a country through nonviolence, developed the independence of India. And this was a quote from Mahatma Gandhi. And here was a leader in the 1940s who was practicing what I hope to do in the 21st century medicine. So thank you all. I appreciate your time, and I'm glad I got to be here with you this morning.
Sanjay, phenomenal talk, very provocative, informational for all of these young leaders. Questions from the group?
Please.
So much. Lots to think about. I struggle because medicine is inherently hierarchical. I mean, everything from you, PGY1, junior attending, the chief, the chain of command, escalation protocol.
Yeah.
It's hard to stand in a circle on rounds. I'll be honest, I'm rounding this week and say everyone has an equal voice. Everyone has, how do you create that environment that really feels like someone can bring something up? And ultimately, when at the end of the day, what I decide, the signature.
Love that. When I was in the Toyota factory and we had these small group sessions and I talked, and we did talk about what were the barriers for why, and I brought up a senior leader in my division that I have trouble getting a meeting on with. When we have meetings, he always takes over and has ideas. And I could not see a way forward in this current environment we have. And it speaks to the hierarchy of medicine, whether you're in a round, whether you're in a meeting, a faculty meeting, whether you're with your residents, there's a hierarchy. The feedback I got was that I was thinking wrong. And I do think I was thinking wrong. The biggest change I can give for you guys when you're trying to lead change is thinking about change yourself. It's the first thing I have to do when I go to a meeting is change myself. I'm not speaking because of that person. I'm speaking not speaking because of me. I have to learn, regardless of the environment, that I need to change myself, the way I show up, the way I'm present. Those other factors are there. They're not going to go away. But I have to be a little more fearless in my presence in these spaces. So I respect entirely there's a hierarchy, and you don't want to be not respectful to that hierarchy. But there's a fear I feel sometimes that I realize doesn't even exist. You know, I think that senior faculty doesn't want me to speak. They just don't know better. They're not trying to impose their will on me, but it's just that's their leadership style. And I have to recognize I have a different way of thinking, a different way of sharing, and I have to be a little bit more fearless in being present in those spaces.
Any other questions for Dr. Parikh? Or anything online?
To follow up on this question, then how do you encourage people below you to be more fearless?
Yeah. Well, that speaks, how do I encourage people below me to be more fearless? I mean, it's that idea of psychological safety, right? I mean, I really go out of my way in meetings. It's a great question, Dr. Harley. I used to go to meetings and I had to have all the ideas. I wanted to be known for these ideas. But now I go to meetings and I think, or in rounds, and I think, how do I get other people to come up with the ideas, and I honor and celebrate them? So maybe I'm rounding and I go, hey, what do you guys think about that? I already know, we've seen 100 craniotomies for patients with mastocytosis. I heard about the case this morning. But when I'm on rounds, I'm going like, hey, what do you guys think is going on here? Why is this patient not able to, why have strabismus or whatever, I already know the answer, I think, but I'm happy to ask those questions to create more environment where people are challenged to speak to their thoughts. Yeah.
I think to that point, I would expand the question around how do we meet the new generation within those boundaries of leadership?
I agree. There's a whole idea that we all generationally different, right? I'm Gen X, we're Gen X, Gen Z, and then we've got everyone's making fun of millennials, right? We're all having fun around that. But I gotta say, I kind of have moments of resentment when I hear our residents saying, oh, I want more money for travel. I want to have, we want to have a separate call pool to cover me when I'm ill. Like, these are concepts that are so foreign to me, right? But I recognize that we have to think differently. There's a generational gap, and I'm proud of my generation. I went to a comedy show on Saturday in Seattle, and there was a guy making fun of millennials, and he said, and he's about probably my age, and he goes, this is the first time in the history of man that parents are cooler than their kids. And I love that, like, maybe we are different, but it doesn't mean we're not cool. But, like, I think that we have to recognize these differences are cultural, and have space and value for each other through that. I think if we just hang on to our own cultural generation and don't listen, there's no success in them. Okay.
I hate to admit that I'm actually a boomer.
You're a boomer. You're twins, man. We're twins.
Any other questions? Lovely. Again, Dr. Parikh, what a pleasure. Well done. Thank you, everyone.
That was fun, man.
Have a
Good day.